We are back. Giants Baseball, past, present, and future. My name is Ralph Tycho. The host is Tim Haller. The co-host is Patrick Quinlan tonight. And they're both with us. Patrick?
Hey, good evening.
And Timmy?
I am here.
All right. I am going to turn it over to you guys and have a wonderful show. Enjoy. And I'll catch you next week. And you guys go for it.
All right. Take care, Ralph. Hey, Patrick. Good to have you on again, buddy.
Hi,
I think we will start the show off with me saying, I told you so.
Yeah.
Do you get that? Do you get the I told you so?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So,
Growing up.
what did we learn from last week's show, and what can we carry over into today's show and into the future, regarding our Giants?
I don't know. But I just miss Harry Carey as I'm watching the Cubs and the Dodgers. Oh, my.
Holy cow.
I miss Sammy. Where's Sammy? It's just, it's that post early doldrums, man. And, just, knowing that, we're not playing, so,
and for me, my expectations weren't that high, so my disappointment level wasn't so big either. Just because I had the inkling that they weren't going to win, and it didn't mean that I didn't hope that they wouldn't win, or I didn't think that certain things couldn't bounce their way, but I just didn't think that they had the ability or the talent to get them to the next series, and that's okay. I mean, and I think that there's a lot that we can learn from last year, especially when it comes to personnel, movements, etc. But for all of us Giant diehards out there, we're bummed out because now we're watching, the Dodgers play the Cubs, and, that's not always a good, fun thing to be in Giant land.
Exactly.
So tell me what are your thoughts about the upcoming season, or the off season, I should say, the upcoming off season, and certain things that the Giants absolutely have to address as far as player moves, etc.
Well, they're in a really great position as far as being a top tier team. So they got so many guys that aren't going to be with us, and we got so much money off the books. So it's going to be exciting. So their blueprint, their way of running business. So they're going to have a lot of money. They're going to go out and address that as soon as these playoffs are over and getting a closer. And then they'll just look at other areas. Do you look at a Nunez, where maybe that's one thing about the Cardinals and the Cubs and a couple other teams, where they don't really sit on certain guys that are certain position guys that have been used to that position. They really instill, being more versatile, and guys make, livings that way. Zorbis, is the first one to mind because I'm watching them. So closer, they'll have plenty of money, and they'll just go right back at it. It's just how they roll. They're not they're a 3-time World Series champ. They got all these young guys still that are there with Crawford and Belt and Panic and of course Buster's the veteran now, and the 5 starters now basically with of course Mad Bomb and Cueto and Samardzija and Moore and Ty Block. So they're looking solid there, but there's concerns because Span's kind of an older player. There's a lot of exciting things. I'd like to see him get a power bat, left or third. So
and when we talk about there have been these conversations about power hitters and AT&T Park, and they just don't seem to mesh really well. There's not a really good, the only guy that we witnessed in our lifetime that really handled that ballpark well was Barry Bonds, as far as power was concerned. If we have guys, if we could spread out our lineup, 5 guys deep hitting 20 dingers a year, I'd be happy with that. And I think that's very doable with Belt, Posey, Panic. Not Panic. Panic's probably capable of hitting 20, but Crawford and Pence. So you get 5 guys hitting 20 bombs and a couple other guys contributing double digits, 10, 12 dingers. I'm okay with that just because of the ballpark that we play in. It isn't built for power hitters. It really isn't. So the way I'm looking at this reconstruction or this little retooling of the club is one thing I'm really encouraged about, and I think we can all take away from this last season. As difficult as it was to watch our bullpen kind of just disintegrate, and we full well know there are some names that are no longer going to be on the club, like a Lopez and a Romo. We know that those guys are probably going to be gone. But I am encouraged by the experience that these young arms did get, like the Smiths and the Stricklands and some of these other guys. I think George Contos is solid out of the pen. So we've got a really good foundation of a bullpen, but we need that one key piece. We need that one guy to come in and just dust the victory for us. Come in and get those 3-4 outs if needed, that, an additional out. We just need somebody to come in and do that the vast majority of the time. I don't think Casilla will be back. He's 36 years old now too, and he had, without argument, probably the worst season of his career. But he served us well during the course of the last several years, and I can't be more happy with the way he really, performed for us over, the length of his career. So we need to go out and get like a Melanson or somebody comparable to that. And I think that we need to address our left field situation. I think Stan actually did a pretty good job. He is a little bit older, but I really was quite happy with the way he manned center field. He ran down a lot of great, made some great catches, ran down a lot of balls. I think he, certainly was respectable at the plate. He stole a little over 20 bases this year. I'm not sure exactly the numbers. So I'm okay with, Denard Stan. The one question mark that I have is, how is Hunter Pence going to respond from this, subpar year too? And, as wonderful as he's been, he's injury prone and a little suspect to some things. But I like this kid Parker. I think Williamson did a good job when called upon. But this kid Parker's got a good chance of breaking spring camp this year, being our left fielder, and I'm okay with that. And he's got a little bit of pop, and especially with that short porch in right field, he might be a pleasant addition to our lineup. I just love the way that the Giants can pull from within their organization and not always have to pull, guys, free agents and spend a lot of money to do that. I'm a little more conservative that way. I know that we do have a lot of money off the books this year, and that means we can get crazy and spend money. But that doesn't always work either. That's a roll of the dice as well. And then maybe we do look at third base and talk about what we've got coming up. I know Christian Arroyo has been talked about a little bit as far as moving him over to third base, and he certainly brings a lot of youth and vigor to the potential Giants lineup as well. What do you know about Christian Arroyo?
Well, he's a stud. He was sought after. The Giants, really, really liked a lot of them. So they, they're high on him, and his history of just being a really solid player. I mean, just a part of that great Cuban lot, So he's he's probably, 2+ years away. He faded in the second half. But because he's got to go up the ranks and face that, double A every day and that triple A every day, so, it's not like a big, number one draft pick third baseman, you would see where there, you're going to see him in the big leagues in 2 years or so. So he's a ways away. That's why Nunez was a great trade, because I like him a lot. I mean, he's really, really, really good. And
well, I like his offensive abilities. Sure, I do like Nunez, but he was nowhere near the third baseman that Duffy was, and he showed that. I mean, he made some errant throws, and he had some difficulty squaring the ball up in his glove, but he didn't play every day at third base in Minnesota either. So you got to give him an opportunity to really kind of show himself as well. But I know he can swing the bat.
Well,
He's got some speed, upper line, top of the order speed that we need. He might very well complement our lineup on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So that's
a question yeah. Now, a question that I have for you is, and this is one of those things that makes me shake my head, and maybe you can help me, pacify me a little bit, if you will. The minute the Giants closed out the season, they held a press conference, and then immediately, or either before or after the press conference, they fired 2 coaches that had been with the organization for several years, almost to a point of making it appear, I don't think that was the intent, but it appeared as though we're going to place some of the blame on you 2 guys for our losing season. And I think that the timing was inappropriate, and I think the way they expressed it was inappropriate. But they let go of Roberto Kelly and Billy Hayes, the first and the third base coaches. What is your opinion on that move, and how do you think that's going to make us a better team?
Wasn't that, I've never seen that, ever. And it's like, what was the urgency on that when the press conference was 30 minutes, when it was so urgent, like there's some hostility, or there's some anger there. There's just some oddity, like, oh God, well, they're like, they couldn't wait. And normally that,
I don't get it.
Like what Arizona and Colorado, and I get that in Barry, not coming back from the Marlins. But Billy Hayes, 17 years, Kelly, 8 or 9, and Kelly was a Sabian guy from the Yankees and all that stuff, because a lot of Sabian guys are Yankee guys. And then they say, well, they'll Giants are good about reassigning guys in the organization. But that was really abrupt to me.
Yeah, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. But
really
it kind of goes par for course for the whole season. I mean, they've made some really weird deals. I mean, honestly, I really, it leaves you scratching your head a little bit. It sort of follows in consistency with like the Duffy deal, which is, now it's a done deal. It's gone. It's over. Moore is going to be a solid part of our rotation next year. I'd kind of like to see Gary Davenport get a chance to coach first base or something like that, because of the opening or the availability of those positions being open. I know that there's been some talk about Will Clark coming back and coaching every day at first base, which would be huge. Just to have his presence in that clubhouse and that dugout, and the motivation that he brings every day could ignite a lot of these kids, these guys, and veterans as well. But, it'll be interesting to see how they fill these voids. It just kind of makes me wonder, though, what's really going on, and why are you doing something like that so quickly and almost inefficiently right after the end of the day after the season's over? I didn't get it. But then again, they've done a few things this season that I don't get.
they had too much time to address some real weaknesses where that's going to take up that short, and all teams do that postseason wrap where it just seems unprofessional to me. Like, that's not the Giant way, because they're both loyal guys, and it's your hire. You hired these guys. You're the one that, how all of a sudden, well, how come you didn't get evaluated at the halfway point? How come, if that was a problem, 2 months ago with 35 games to play, you make a move, or what you just continued to allow? That's like in any business. I've been in the restaurant hospitality business. Why would I stay with a bartender that's constantly doing a poor job, or a waitress or a waiter or a busboy or a chef, and just continue to allow them to hurt the business by not making a change right away? Like, if they saw that there's problems with first to third or second to home, or tagging up on fly balls, or whatever their assessment was, how come that wasn't addressed more promptly? Like, they couldn't wait. Like, they caught.
Well, it's almost as though the Giants kind of, and this is just, of course, the way I see it. It's kind of like they're ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the bullpen, and they're bringing smoke and mirrors out to say we're gonna let go of Kelly and Hayes. It's kind of like we're gonna take the heat off of ourselves.
Exactly. I've never seen that before. I mean, this is a team that won 10-7, and you have Flannery says no way, because he loves where his life's at. Like you said, no way, right. Aloha, mahalo, whatever. And you move Kelly from first to third. Well, third base coach is almost like a great closer or a great middle guy. I mean, a third base coach, it's a vital role. So
it is.
Why was that?
And I didn't see anything indicative of Roberto Kelly losing a fair share of games because of the calls that he made out there at third base. I don't get it. I heard something during the past few days about 16% of the guys that he sent home got thrown out, which I guess is supposed to be pretty high, and it seems to me to be a pretty high figure. But I just didn't see them being the focal point of what the season was all about, and it just kind of made me kind of scratch my head.
It seemed like there was some, like they were really irritated, like really like it was like so abrupt. And that's
it didn't make a whole lot of sense. No, that's not the way they usually do things.
Yeah, because they're classy, like right away. And that's not unfair to those guys. They're still they're like in a mourn because they just lost. Like they just lost a brutal game, 6-5 at home, where that inning had nothing to do with them.
It had absolutely nothing to do with it, and that game was indicative of their whole year. That ninth inning meltdown was, really the underscore of the season, in that the bullpen couldn't hold a lead, and that's
against the shift. They're all ground balls except the shot that Zobrist hit. So they won it was a 5-2. They should have added on, but it was 5-2, and it should have been on to Chicago. It's just bizarre. It's like that's not their way of. They've always been known to be pretty classy in those types of moves.
I'm gonna express, and this is something that I'm really good at. I'm gonna express my opinion. I think that there is a little bit of something going on in the front office. I really do, and I think that it's this insurgence of Bobby Evans's calling, making the calls now. And I think that there is, and this is just my observation, I think there's a little apprehension on the point of Bochy, trusting him completely. Given the fact that he wasn't really given great personnel to run with during the course of the season, he certainly didn't address the need of a closer in the second half of the season. Instead, he went out and he got a left-handed starter, which we needed, and he did, he was decent. He wasn't great. He had a couple of good outings, and he had a couple of really poor outings. But I just don't understand. I don't think that there's a real good chemistry between them in terms of, well, at least Bochy trusting the general manager. And that remains to be seen, I think. When Bobby has another year coming up of being at the helm of these decisions, we'll see what happens. He's got an off season to kind of make some good or not so good decisions as far as players and who he's going to replace at those two coaching spots. But man, I'm not a big believer yet in the new regime in the front office, and it's going to take me a little bit of time. It's going to take some time for convincing, before I really start to have any faith in his decision making.
No different personalities.
I don't know.
There, Brian, and Brian's a hard ass, a serious guy, and it's like,
well, he is, but he's also very approachable. He's gregarious. He's open.
He's just serious of nature because he was a Steinbrenner guy, so
yeah,
he gets it. And then all of a sudden he had a vision, and when he got out of when he got inserted to the man, and he's working under Quinn, and he couldn't wait for Quinn to leave, and then it was his show. This is how we do things, and it's 3 rings, and it's the 2002 World Series appearance. 4 World Series, and I mean, golly. So that's a lot of success, and so Evanson's doing the day-to-day and spending the hours and being involved with the major league roster, but different personality, different nature. And it's like, I look back on that, I go, okay, he's still going to have he's still going to have Tidrow's input and Barr and all those heavies on top there, and it's like, there's a sternness there that Saban had, pro's pro,
Well, I just think he had greater control and he had greater respect of those that were around him. And even in the press conference, I was taken a little bit aback of just in the personality aspect of Bobby Evans. He's just so tight. He so little expression. Sabian, at least, his tone is really encouraging and positive and everything. And Bobby Evans he's just like a clam. Maybe he's scared to death. I don't know. Or maybe he's keeping his cards very close to his chest. I don't get it. And I know that this is a personality thing with me too.
Yeah, there's a panic there, like he just lost. Brutal. A brutal franchise loss. Brutal. You're up 5-2.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
5-2 at home. At home.
Yeah.
At home. Final. Elimination game. You're up 5-2 and you lose.
That's all true.
Well, it's the players. Nothing to do with you. It's the players, but you still have something to do with that because there wasn't a game plan. Just like when you talk about Red Auerbach and Walsh and all the great leaders of sports teams in North America in our lives, and there's meetings. If we get to this situation, what are we going to do? And calm wasn't the bomb, and there's a panic there, and we got crushed in that inning and couldn't respond. And then you're actually thinking like you deserve to go, and now you're pissed. Like something got to you there, like under your skin. Like, well, Hayes and Keller are gone. wait a second,
Yep.
no. So it was just odd to me because when I'm watching this, I'm going, it was only for a half hour. 33 minutes actually or something.
Yeah.
So
it was just the whole house caved in, the building burnt down right in front of everybody's eyes. And it became very apparent at that point in that inning. And I think it was apropos too. I think it was very telling of the overall impression of the season in one half inning. And I think that we can learn from that if we can get away out of our own way. Like if a Bobby Evans is going to be too arrogant to realize hey, it takes a man to step up and say, you know what, I made some bad decisions and I'm going to do the best that I can to correct those things this coming season. Let's see what he's got. I'm giving him this year. And let's see if he can come up with some better decisions. That's all I've got to say. Patrick, I want to close our show tonight. Yes.
Yeah.
What's that? I want to close tonight with you telling me and the rest of our audience. We talked earlier on the phone today, but I want you to share the story of you and I think this was like 78, 77. I can't remember what year it was. We got to travel down south with the big club to LA and to San Diego. And I want you to share with me a little bit of your memories and your experiences on that particular trip.
Well, that was just...
If you can remember.
insane. Oh, yeah. Well, the greatest thing about going on those trips was now you really felt accepted, like another level of being accepted. The first homestand, you get rid of the butterflies. And you start getting accepted like my first year, 76. Well, 2+ years later, I've always been on some trips. Going down there with you in L.A., because the Dodgers were always great in the 70s. I mean, you knew about the infield that was there for 8 years with Say and Russell, Lopes and Garvey and Yeager and in the outfield with Baker and Reggie and all those guys. But, going on the flight with them, going on the team bus with them. Taking a cab with Bob Nepper to your stadium and getting out there early because I wasn't with them the first time. And we go out early because I'm not telling that. He's going to show me something differently. So we're out there just in our street clothes, walking out to center field at 1:00 in the afternoon. We got out there super early, 1:30 in the afternoon, and going out to Dodger Stadium and looking back and seeing all those layers of stands, and how awesome that was, and all the memories of all the great Dodgers that played there. Because I'm all about baseball and being a historian, all that stuff, and then just that, and then just the batting practice and the how great they take care of you. A guy named Jim Newley, who was a legendary clubby for the Dodgers and took care of the visitors. But, BP in there, and then that year was Hollywood Stars Night. So
yes,
in that era, if you're a bat boy, I mean, I took full advantage because there's no rules about access. Well, you can't shag, you can't go over to the visitors clubhouse or home clubhouse on the road. Like, there's total access. Well, there's Hollywood Stars Night, and I'm getting pictures with Adam Rich from 8 and Enough, getting pictures with Walter Matthau,
Jack Lemmon.
Jacqueline Smith from Charlie's Angels. There's a core. There's probably 14 of them. So being around that whole Hollywood scene was exciting for me. Like, I dug that. I love the Giants, and I love being from San Francisco and being a Bay Area guy. But that was awesome. And then the games, that particular, I think we took 2 out of 3 because that was a great year. Not even sweating because we got Vida, and then we had
we were riding that orange skateboard, Vida's orange skateboard in '78.
Exactly, and Halicki and and Jim Barr and
Count.
Lavelle. That was a good team. Darrell Evans, Jack Clark, and Terry Whitfield, Matt
And the Count.
McCovey, and the Count, and all that.
Johnny
stuff.
Lee.
So those, yeah, exactly, Johnny Lee in Paintsville, Kentucky, and then so enjoying that whole LA scene was exciting. The same responsibilities were there, and what was great too is just it's only you and I, so that point on the road was so cool because I didn't have to do any of the pre or postseason work because they did that. I did in game by doing the bats. That's it. So that was wild. It was like I felt like a player. And then taking the bus down. You take the bus down to San Diego, it's only 2.5 hours. So you're on two buses.
Yep.
You got the mellow guys, the manager and the coaches, the mellow veterans, and then you got the disco guys and the R&B guys or all that stuff. So I'm on that bus. on that bus down, we're loaded up with pickle buckets of cold beer. It's awesome. Like 5 of them every couple of rows. So, everybody wants to take a little nap, because it's right after game on a Sunday, and then we had a day off on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in San Diego. And I'm sitting there, and I look over, to this car right by the bus, and I'm waving to these two gals that are with their boyfriend or this guy that's driving a convertible. And they're staying the whole way for a good hour and a half. Well, 20 minutes in, they're putting on a whole show for us. Literally, they're putting on this whole interesting show that the players were entertained by. And the puppy was on
of course. And the play-by-play from the guys, from the players, was just unbelievable. And when you can get remarks from Greg Moonman Minton and some of the other characters we had on that club, Halicki and Count, those guys, their play-by-play was as good as it was equal to Vin Scully's best calls of his career on that one particular bus ride down to San Diego.
Period. Because it was an hour and a half. And they ate it up.
Of course they did.
These people, they loved it, and they took off their shirts, and they just had this great time loving Southern California, and it was awesome. And then they turned off and headed towards Huntington Beach or whatever the where they drifted off on 10 or whatever down there, and then we cruised into San Diego in the Murph, the yard, and I was like going to yard. And go to the Murph and San Diego and those folks in their clubhouse and Brian and those guys, and that was awesome because nothing is like going on the road when they win and we were in first place. So.
Oh yeah, and we were on a roll. We swept them that series.
Oh, it was so good.
But the one thing that just endeared me to you that whole trip. I can remember leaving the hotel in L.A. going to to Chavez Ravine. And we would sit in the back of the bus, the two of us, and you were sitting at the window. I was in the aisle seat, and you're looking out the window, and you're like every other word or phrase out of your mouth is, "We're going to the yard. we're going to the yard. This is a shrine. We're going to." Your reference to Dodger Stadium as though we were going to go see the Taj Mahal or something, and that just was so infectious with me. That was just like, I got excited sitting next to you on the bus, having been a kid growing up at Dodger Stadium for 4 years of my life, with my dad playing there. I got excited about going to Dodger Stadium because I was sitting next to you on the bus to go to the stadium, to the ballpark. And that was just, those are things that's something I'll never forget. And I'll be forever grateful for that.
Well,
so, give me your quick synopsis here. What do you see happening with the division series or the championship series in each league, and who do you see taking home the crown this year?
I think I like Cleveland in like 5, and I like the Cubs in 6, and I like the Cubs winning it all.
Okay. it would be really fun to see Cleveland and the Cubbies butt heads for a championship, because it's been so long for both clubs, raising their flag. That flag, my heart goes a little bit out to the Cub fans and everything that they've had to endure over the last 108 years to finally get a championship. But as long as the Dodgers lose, I don't really care who wins, because as far as I'm, my favorite team, of course, is the Giants and anybody that's playing the Dodgers. So, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and I'm looking forward to it. Patrick, I want to thank you again for co-hosting with me on Giants Baseball, past, present, and future for this week's show. I look forward to having you on maybe next week. And in the immortal words, everybody, of the great Ralph Tycho, hang in there, everybody, and keep on keeping on. Have a blessed week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Sidney, for having me. Honored, my friend. God bless you.